Hello and welcome to So You Think You're Awake, the show about life transformation through dream interpretation. I'm Michael Sheridan. On the show, through analyzing your dreams, I reveal your potential and the obstacles you need to overcome. I'm very specific. I tell you the magic power you have, what makes you magnificent, and the bumps in life that are holding you back. These bumps are not in the way, they are the way. To get your dream analyzed on my show, go to dream-analysis.com, fill in the form and submit your dream to the show. That's it. That's all you have to do, and I will take it from there. Our first dream comes from Melissa, and she sent it in just a couple of days ago. I'm going to skip her comments. I'm going to come back to her comments, and I'm going to say read the dream first. She says, I was on a bus with two other females as well as two males. The females were at the back of the bus. It seemed like we were fighting or in competition with the males. I went to the front of the bus by the males and saw a gold heart on the floor. It was just the outline of a heart. There were two hearts, both very similar, but one was broken, or at least the little circle that's used to attach it to a necklace was broken. And she titled the dream Broken Heart. Now, it's kind of funny because I got another dream during the week. I don't know if I'll get to it, but somebody was saying, well, it has the number 2, so I know the dreamer's a channel. Well, 2, yes, channels' dreams are littered with 2s because 2 is about communication. But it's also about forgiveness, letting go, and relationships. And so the 2 in this dream is about relationships, clearly, because that's what the dream is about, and broken hearts. And so before I analyze it, I'm going to read her comment, and I'm going to cut out pieces. She says, the reason I'm wondering if this dream is getting over a broken heart is because I recently met someone and I know we have had many past lives together and that we have a soul contract in this life and he's meant to help me with my self-worth. Well, that's really good. And I think unconditional love. However, I'm scared because I think there is an expiration date on the relationship. And there often is in ones where there's learning involved. Once the lessons are learned, we will go our separate ways, and I'm afraid of that pain. No matter how logical I think about it, I can't seem to get over my fear and feelings, which I know is the exact opposite of how I'm supposed to be in regard to this relationship. So I'm wondering if there is a past hurt that I need to work through. Well, there is, because we can see the broken heart on the floor in this dream. And so you're absolutely right. You're able to look at this and you're able to see where it's going and how it's important. And yet you want to avoid the pain. And so let's have a look at the dream. You're on this bus. So buses are vehicles. You're moving forward with other people in your life. That's what it is. And it's relationships because of the 2. And being in competition. Okay, we can skip that a bit. That's fine. No issue there. But you went to the front of the bus by the males and saw a gold heart on the floor. So this is saying it's really good. Like the place for you to be in a dream is always up front. It's not about in the back. So to go up front, so getting a partner, absolutely the right thing for you to do. And the gold heart says it's healing for your heart. But the gold heart is on the floor. So it's kind of like this guy is going to disregard my heart or throw it away. And I'm going to suffer from a broken heart because we have the broken heart in the dream. But the other way to look at this is the broken heart, or the one that appears broken, is the one that is freed from the chain. And that's what you want to do in life. You want to free yourself. You don't want to stay in a relationship and be bound and not free. And that's what a heart on a chain is going to be about. Gold heart, by the way, is a really good symbol in a dream. Gold is the color for healing. So this relationship is going to help heal your heart. It's a good thing. And it's also going to help free you. So here's what you have to overcome. It's not the pain of losing this guy, because that hasn't even happened. What you need to overcome is the pain of losing other people in the past. And that is what you're bringing into this relationship. And that's what you need to heal. And once we have something to learn in a relationship, and saying something to learn is really the wrong way to put it. But we attract into our lives the people who can help us with our pain. So if we deal with the pain before we attract in a partner, then the partner we're going to attract is not here to help us with pain. They're just here to support us, to be who they are, and we're going to be with them and get amplified because of them, which is really what we want in a relationship. So the way to avoid pain in your relationship is don't bring pain from former relationships into it. And that's very easy for me to say, but it's also kind of easy to work on, because there are lots of therapies that help you deal with that. Sometimes it's just the awareness of, yeah, I shouldn't be going in with this preset agenda or this preset fear, let's say, and I should just enjoy this relationship for what it is, for what I get out of it. And I can put as much of myself into this relationship as I want to put, regardless of how my partner is or whatever is going to or may happen in the future. And learn about yourself, grow your heart in this relationship. And then if you get to the point where you do separate, do it knowing that you got everything that you could out of it because you put everything into it. Not that, oh, I knew it was going to end, I shouldn't have bothered. Because we can say that about our lives. Our lives are going to end, so why bother? And we don't. So don't say it about individual stages about your life. Again, I know it's easy for me to say that. And if I was in the same position as you, I'd probably look at it the same way as you. But knowing it in advance, like the dream is showing you, that the broken heart is a free heart. Or, it's how you choose to look at it. Deal with the karma, because the chain in a dream represents karma, and then free yourself from the karma. So it does imply a kind of a contractual obligation in this relationship. It's going to help you in some way. But that's great. If somebody is a soul partner that you've had in previous lives, there's going to be something very comfortable about that relationship because you will know their energy and so on. But thank you, Melissa, for sending in the dream. I love the dream. This next one is from Mary. She says, I had a dream last night where I was playing a violin in a concert. And she says, I used to play violin. Now, here's my first question. When? What age were you? And if you say, oh, well, I was in middle school or I was in high school, then that's the dream is bringing you back to then. In the rehearsal, we were in the back of the concert hall. Again, not good to be in the back. But rehearsals and in the back here is also going to be like rehearsal for life, preparing for when you're on stage, when the spotlight's on you. It was all different. And the way the seats were set up made it impossible to bow. The actual night of the concert, I went in and there were no chairs at all for us. I was laughing and saying, guess we're all going to stand in the space now and play. It's confusing because I felt in the dream like whoever was doing setup was being inconsiderate of the musicians to the point where they just removed our seats completely. But a part of me also thought it would actually be easier to play now that we had more space and no chairs. And I love the conclusion you got to at the end of that dream. It's like the limitations being placed on you, like you're all being cramped together and it seems like this is really bad, and then the seats are taken away and it's like, well, that's even worse. But ultimately you're able to say, well, it gives me freedom and space to now actually play in the concert. Your own thoughts on this were, the rehearsals represent how I feel about the universe removing seats or removing people, but in the end I realized the less seats might actually be easier or better. Well, that's kind of right. When I channel on it, I get that's kind of right, but only because of the theme of looking at limitation and looking at somebody else's inconsideration and saying, well, they think they're hurting me even more, but because of their inconsideration, because of the limitation they placed on me, I'm going to do something a bit different and I'm going to grow and still be able to do what I need to do. So in that context, it's right. You said you also had another thought about it, and that is that you don't always remove people when you should. So that's like clear out your friend list, and you try to please people who aren't necessarily the best people to have in your orbit. And you said, and in this dream, I'm feeling pushed aside or made feel unimportant, and I hope it's a good sign that I decide not to be defeated in the end. Yes, absolutely. That part's absolutely true, but the not always removing people when you should, that's not what the dream is about. It is about playing the game of life despite the influences that you picked up around the time when you used to play violin. So needing to overcome those limitations, which aren't on you now, you're freer. But again, it's a good dream because of how you react at the end of it. It's perfect. It's a perfect reaction. So now we move on. Again, I feel like I'm flying through these dreams, but we move on to Debbie. She says, I have always been frightened of motorbikes, fear of falling off them. In my dream last night, I was riding one. I was at a set of traffic lights and the bike started to move into the other lane. It was doing it all by itself and I had no control over it. It started to swerve between other cars and I felt at one point I was going to be thrown off. The lights changed and the cars started to move. I closed my eyes and then I found myself on the road of a different direction. That's how she says it. I was planning on going on. I started to enjoy the ride and felt comfortable and confident that I was riding the motorbike. After what seemed like hours, I felt myself back on the road I was planning on going on originally. And then she says, I've recently changed direction in the degree course I'm taking from psychology to more biology and human anatomy to combine it with my studies of medical astrology. I'm not sure if this is part of the dream. And I'm like, medical astrology? There is such a thing. And I'm thinking of my grandsons. They're 6 and 8, well, soon to be 7 and 9. Birthday's coming up next month. And their big cartoon hero for a long time was Captain Underpants. And I could just see medical astrology being used where somebody says, you think the problem is with your head, but I see a problem in your anus. Sorry, I couldn't resist. It was too easy a joke. But this dream says, okay, well, before I analyze it, we have April, who is a good friend and a friend of the show, and she works with me on some of my courses, and she already gave an analysis for this, and I'm going to read it out. She says, nice, the motorcycle is your heart, and career is the theme. Career is definitely the theme because that's what the lanes and the traffic is about. The guidance is not try to control what you think should happen, where you worry that you're throwing yourself off course, but feel into your heart for what feels enjoyable or expansive to do, even if it's scary for ego reasons. It seems that no matter what, you'll end up where your soul has planned for you to be. Just feel into where your enjoyment is. And I totally agree with that, Angel. April. April Angel is her name. But I would also add, you're not meant to change lanes. It is interesting you associate bikes with your fear of being thrown off. This means that you are already thrown off, past tense. But your guides say not to be hard on yourself. Once you remember that you're also meant to enjoy the ride and follow your heart, you will indeed end up going in the direction that you were originally going, just like the dream says. But you will have fun. And that's the important part. But yeah, nice dream. It's really cool how our dreams will pick something that is very personal to us. So fear of being thrown off a motorbike is a personal fear for Debbie. And so that's what it means in a dream. So we have the collective unconsciousness, which is like a whole dictionary of symbols that we can use and say, okay, this means this and this means this. But I can have a personal association with any of those symbols that will override that default setting. And when I pick up a dream dictionary that really is better being burned than read, and there are many, many of those, or I read a website that also I should ignore because they just have made up answers for symbols, you will actually buy into what those sites say, and your dreams will change and start using those symbols to mean what they say they mean, because you've kind of forced this personal association of those symbols, and so it will mean that for you going forward. But if you then were to pick up or move to a site that is accurate in its analysis of symbols and dreams, then your dreams and use of symbols will switch back. They will always switch back to the default setting once you discover that default setting. They won't gravitate away from that again once you've discovered the default setting. So if you've never read anything, then the meaning of your symbols is going to mean what I say. Now, and here's the thing. I don't just say, okay, this always means this. Like the fear of motorbikes is obviously different for Debbie. But I channel on dreams. Once I analyze them, I channel on them as well to make sure I've got the analysis correct. And my guides will tell me when there's a personal association for a symbol and it means something different for somebody. And that's a super part. You can't just take the information and get the analysis just with the information. You have to work it harder than that. Anyway, kind of digressed. Let's move on. Let's have a look at another dream. So here's two dreams that have been carrying around for a while from Jim. And I really like the dreams, but I don't know really what I can say about them except they're just pretty amazing, because they reveal an awful lot about the way life is. Now, the first one, not so much. Well, yeah, it does, but it also tells us about a gift Jim has. And in the dream, David, his partner, is features, so we know it's also about the relationship. So he says, here's the dream. David was researching language in New Orleans. It was discovered that the river was holding the vibrations of sound, and we had developed a way of detecting these vibrations going back about 300 years. David was the private investigator on the project. It had something to do with the sedimentary patterns of the river bottom and the vibration of the water molecules. Music was the easiest to detect in general, but so were things said by people on or near the river, marine commerce, tourism, and also magical work done with the river. I love that little bit thrown in. The river was the source of wisdom of the ages. We knew the vibrations went back further than 300 years, but we didn't have an instrument to detect that subtle of a vibration yet. So here's how you really need to look at this dream. The river is the river of life. It's also David in a way, you could say, or it's going to represent him, just for the purpose of illustration in the dream. So if you look at it again and you say, and you realize that what Jim has is the ability to pick up the influences a person has had from what people have said to them, from the influences on them, from their culture. He's able to detect the layers of that that influence a person today. So we can look at a person and say, okay, what I see is this history going back of this influence, then this influence, and then this influence. And he can also do it going back into past lives. So that's Jim's skill. He has the ability to do that. And it's just really good. I mean, so if I read a bit of the dream again and read the river as being about, the river is the river of life and how we all come to the river to drink, that's ultimately kind of what this is about. So David is researching language in New Orleans. It was discovered that the river was holding the vibrations of sound. We had developed a way of detecting these vibrations going back about 300 years. And it had something to do with the sedimentary patterns of the river bottom and the vibration of the water molecules. And then he goes on to say, that it could pick up conversations and commerce and tourism and magic work. The magic work, of course, is the ultimate thing. And this says, that's why we know Jim has this particular ability. He can tap into the energies of a person. And also, he gets it amplified by earth energies too. He can tap into earth energies too. And this helps amplify what he reads in a person, and see what's going back, how they've been influenced going back. And we all have. And that's what I say all the time. We're influenced by our parents. We're influenced by our culture. And we pick up blocks. We pick up dysfunctions because of these influences. And Jim's ability is to see those and see them really clearly. And always when you're the person that can see these blocks, you're also a person that can help people clear them. So Jim can do that too. But it's really interesting that the way this dream just says it, that the vibration, our vibration is affected, and we lay down this sedimentary patterns that we pick up from the influences of those around us, going back not just in this lifetime, but in many, many previous lifetimes. Really nice dream. And then, of course, Jim beats that by submitting this other dream, which is, again, really cool. And look at this as his ability to see, or the dream is really talking about the fact that we come into our life and pick a role, pick a character we're going to play, and we fully immerse ourselves into that character. And then we learn whatever we can from the perspective that we pick up looking at life as that character. And then we come into life again as another character, with different influences and so on. So this kind of fits in with his last dream, but it's just beautifully, elegantly put in this dream. He says, I awoke from a fabulous dream. I was in some sort of version of NOLA, but there was more costumes and more art. So New Orleans is NOLA is New Orleans, LA. But anyway, here he says, here's how it worked. Everyone would dress up in period and style costumes to go out. and then gather in areas of similar attire. The vampires, the Goths, the Victorians, the Edwardians, the French Renaissance, the flappers, and so on. Clubs that went with the period or theme were clustered in parts of the French Quarter, replete with decor and the associated music. So French Quarter is, I'll add a little bit about that one. The French Quarter is about your sexual identity being part of the core that you take on, and your like sexual liberation, your ability to express yourself, including your sexuality, being key to the perspective that you pick up in a lifetime. But the rest is all pretty cool. I mean, so is that, of course. Anyway, he says, including a couple of the most epic goth clubs. How I knew this was a dream, since the goth clubs in New Orleans are lame. Well, I don't know that, never been there, so I'll take your word for it. The Renaissance Club was a massive gold gilt hall serving nibbles, where couples danced the waltz in gaslight. The flapper speakeasies were hot and lively once you found them, and the live music was fabulous, as one would expect. So he's describing each one as its own little scene, and it's completely built into that period, like including gaslight in the Renaissance Club, rather than electric light and so on. The goth clubs had killed kids spilled out onto the street dressed in all kinds of crazy attire, smoking their clothes. The two clubs seemed to be competing for industrial bass beats, but the third club was the mournful candlelit refuge of darkness where you could see eyes peering out from the shadows. This guy could be a writer. It's so well put, and it's like this is who we are. Even in this lifetime, we pick a role and we pick who we are, and we associate with that. Whether we're with the person or not, or we're a loner or whatever, we associate with that character to such a degree that that's like we're all in. We're fully all in, and that's what we're meant to do. He says there was also a field in the middle of the quarter, probably Louis Armstrong Park, where people would do art, but it was human-based art, one display after another of painted people or scenes of people inside elaborate contraptions, moving them methodically. Folks would stroll through the outdoor gallery and minstrels would busk everyone for tips. It was creative and fabulous. Another dream sign, the city was full of canals like Amsterdam, or even more like Venice. We used a boat to get from our hotel to the Goth Club area. Did I mention that everyone was in costume? No dude bros on Bourbon Street, no flock of bachelorette parties, no arguing drunk older couples from Texarkana. Nope. Everyone was dressed to the nines, and you would try a different era as you pleased night after night, no matter if it was June or November. This was how it always worked. So I absolutely love that dream because it's a summary of how our multiple lifetimes work, whether we're aware of it or not. That's how it works. And I like also that you added in the canals, because canals in dreams represent man-made limitations on our spiritual outlook. A river is the ultimate depiction, or the ocean is the ultimate depiction of spirituality in a dream. A river is really, really fantastic because a river is about finding your own course back to source, which is what our lives are about. Us discovering who we are and finding our path to get back to source, get back and restore the awareness of who we are. But a canal is a body of water that is restricted by man-made structures. So it's saying that all of these things are man-made structures that impose limitations on us, but these limitations allow us to learn about ourselves. So that's kind of the theme of this show, because if we go back to earlier dreams in the show, like the seats being taken away from Mary's dream when she was playing the violin and so on. It's like, what are you going to learn about yourself? What are you going to do? Are you still going to be able to play the game with these limitations? And the answer is yes, and you're going to learn about yourself. And Jim says we used a boat to get from our hotel to the Goth Club area. So the hotel is about birth, so it's all about reception at birth. That's what sets up our philosophy of life. It's the biggest thing ever in our lives. It sets up our philosophy, and it also, and I rarely say it in dreams, but it also sets up what's going to take us off the planet. And so when you see health dreams show up for a person, and there's nothing health-wise in this, but when you see health dreams show up for a person, it almost always goes back to very early childhood and says, yeah, it's actually connected to this because at this time you decided this. So much of our lives is impacted, and the direction that it's like the rudder is put in the water at birth, and based on how our parents react to us and how society reacts to us. But absolutely love that dream. So I think we've time to squeeze one more in, and this one is from Susan. She says, "I'm in the parking lot of some event. Parking lot is outside of a school. I haven't been told what time the event begins, and there aren't many people there yet. I'm irritated." So okay, so that's the start. The dream is going to be focusing on where this irritation in Susan's life comes from. And the parking lot is not a good thing in a dream. It's well, it is and it is and it isn't. If it's about you getting into your car and going somewhere, then it's good. A parking lot is about a choice of roles or attitudes, or a choice of roles you have, because in your dream everything is you. Every car is yours. So what car are you going to pick? And that's kind of the way it works in a dream. But anyways, but it's also, it says you need to start moving somewhere. But so it's outside of school. So this is about you learning about yourself in order to improve something. And also, but it's learning about this irritation. How do I solve this? Where does it come from? And enter stage left. A car arrives with a man, a woman, and a young girl. So the young girl is you, a former preschool student, she says in brackets. She is playing around and gets a small cut. So this is a pain in the past. The man, her father or guardian, is trying to help her calm down. He takes her into the school to see the nurse. So this is going to be about parental issues, but probably about dad, because we have a male in the dream who's playing the positive role. And typically what happens in dreams is the character of the same gender will try to heal issues you picked up. There is a long line, so we know the dreamer has elimination system issues. The girl is upset about her cut and apprehensive. So she's upset about the pain that she's picked up in the past, the dreamer is. I make some small talk and jokes with the girl. She calms down and laughs at my silliness. In the dream, I think I've worked at this school before. I take her out of the line and into a back room where I know there are some band-aids. So this is good. This is her healing herself, healing her own pain in the past. That's what she's doing in the dream. She sits in a high chair. See, told you it's going to go back to childhood. She sits on a high chair like a bar seat at a counter. A counter say this is something you're accountable for or something you're meant to do. The room is crowded with things and people. I go get a band-aid. The girl and I maintain eye contact. She is calm and happy. So an excellent dream. It's where you effectively in the dream heal your own pain from the past that you picked up when you were under the surveillance of mom and dad. Okay, that's it for this week. Thanks to everybody for listening. Until next week, I'm Michael Sheridan.